This is a drawing of a pipe constructed entirely of words, a mathematical classification paired with the warning, "This is not a particle." This image captures the exact state of modern theoretical physics. We have mistaken the representation for the physical object itself. For over half a century, the most mathematically sophisticated generation of physicists in history has produced zero testable predictions in quantum gravity and string theory. This stagnation is an epistemic crisis. We have adopted a flawed way of thinking about what physical reality actually is. Over the course of the 20th century, the field quietly inverted the relationship between physics and mathematics. We are caught in the math trap, treating abstract mathematics as a prescriptive force that dictates what reality must be, rather than a descriptive language mapping what is physically there. The result is a disconnect between our models and our world. We have developed a complex accounting ledger for particles and forces and reached a point where the ledger itself is mistaken for the territory it was meant to record. The history of modern physics reveals a pattern of small falls. In 1908, Minkowski chose a tidier geometric spacetime, burying mechanical insights. By the 1920s, the Copenhagen interpretation elevated wave function collapse into a foundational postulate, abandoning the search for physical causes. String theory represents the endpoint of this trajectory. By prioritizing formal elegance over physical constraint, the theory generates a landscape of 10 to the 500th mathematically consistent universes, none of which have been observed. By accepting these incremental mathematical shortcuts, theoretical physics drifted into an abstract geometric maze with no internal exit. In 1939, Eugene Wigner published a paper on the unitary representations of the inhomogeneous Lorentz group that changed the definition of reality. Wigner demonstrated that particles could be classified by their irreducible representations in the Poincare group. He defined a particle by how it transforms under rotations and translations, removing the need to describe what the physical entity actually is. This is the epistemic ladder. At the base sits ground truth, the actual physical structure of the universe. At the very top rung sits pure, abstract mathematics. Wigner took the highest rung of abstraction, a Lie group representation, and installed it at the ground truth level. He committed a category error by declaring the mathematical classification of a thing to be the physical thing itself. From 1939 onward, physicists stopped asking what a particle is physically. The mathematical framework had already declared the question naive. Emmy Noether was one of the most brilliant mathematical minds of the 20th century, yet modern physics systematically misinterprets the causal arrow of her most famous theorem. Modern textbooks teach that mathematical symmetries are foundational to the universe, and these symmetries cause physical conservation laws to exist. This is the Noether inversion. Her theorem proved mathematical equivalence, not causation. Actual physical field dynamics dictate that energy is conserved. The symmetry is just the mathematical language we use to describe that physical stability. Building models based on symmetries rather than physical mechanisms creates accounting problems. The standard model of particle physics requires 19 tunable free parameters, values that must be manually injected into Feynman diagrams to force the math to match experimental data. A theory with 19 independent dials is a Barnum theory, a flexible accounting ledger that mimics fundamental understanding while performing sophisticated curve fitting. When you visit a doctor with unexplained bruising, you might receive a diagnosis of idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura. The word idiopathic is a placeholder, meaning a condition of unknown cause. The diagnosis merely names your symptoms in a dead language. Modern physics operates the same way. The field utilizes complex nomenclature to name observable symptoms while masking a complete absence of underlying mechanism. In physics, wave-particle duality is a label for the fact that radiation acts in two different ways, and we don't know why. Spontaneous symmetry breaking is a declaration that a mathematical pattern vanished, and the cause is unknown. Dark matter is idiopathic gravitational excess. Galaxies rotate faster than visible mass allows, so a mathematical symptom label is applied and eventually treated as a fundamental entity. Translating ignorance into Greek symbols and formalisms does not constitute a physical theory. It is an admission that the field has lost its mechanical anchor. We escape this trap through a methodology called clean physics. This framework demands that physical mechanisms and ontological reality are established before a single mathematical postulate is written. To apply it, we must correct a foundational mistake from the early 20th century. Following the Michelson-Morley experiment, physics concluded that the fabric of spacetime must be completely empty, entirely rejecting the concept of the ether. The rehabilitated ether exists as a polarisable vacuum, a highly active physical medium with measurable permittivity and permeability. This physical reactive medium stands in direct contrast to Einstein's later abstraction of spacetime as purely empty curving geometry. Acknowledging the actual properties of the vacuum regrounds physics. It replaces an empty mathematical stage with a responsive mechanistic environment where actual forces can act. Here, the fundamental particle essentially behaves as a topological soliton, a stable, self-confined knot of electromagnetic flux residing in the vacuum. Grounding particles in physical structure provides a clear answer to a century-old observation. In 1931, Paul Dirac predicted the existence of a magnetic monopole. The mathematics demanded its existence, yet decades of searches turned up nothing. The monopole appears when the topological knot of an electron is turned inside out. The magnetic orientation faces an internal pressure 4,700 times stronger. It cannot persist. The monopole instantly detonates and snaps back before any detector could measure it. Mathematics is a beautiful language, perfectly capable of modeling infinite impossibilities. But to discover the truth of our universe, we must stop letting the tools dictate the rules and put physical reality back in charge.